Hello and welcome to Sunday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic. Now today we're going to try a puzzle by a new compiler. This puzzle is by Undar Beyond. I hope I've said your name correctly. And it's been getting great reviews, this puzzle, on Logic Masters Germany. It has a 96% approval rating and 4 out of 5 stars for difficulty, so it might be tricky. But I was reading the rules of this and thought, wow, that sounds very, very original. So I shall share those with you in just a second. I'm afraid to say that THERMO Sudoku on Steam is still not released. I don't know why. We have asked them to release it repeatedly, but they haven't done so yet. Maybe it's because it's the weekend, or it's because it's a long weekend in the States. We don't know. But hopefully it will be released soon. It is out on Android. It's out on APPSTORE. It's been getting some lovely reviews. So thank you if any of you have written those reviews. We are most grateful. Also on THERMO Sudoku, or on the topic of THERMO Sudoku, there is a bonus puzzle on Patreon at the moment. For any of you who sponsor the channel there, Ashish Kumar, the brilliant constructor from India, has created a very, very nice THERMO Sudoku, and you can play that over on Patreon at the moment. Now with that, let me tell you about this puzzle. Right, so listen to these rules. Normal Sudoku rules apply. Each cage forms a line. The number on the top left shows the sum of the numbers sandwiched between the smallest number and the largest number of the line. Digits cannot repeat in a cage. So this sounds like it's a cross between a killer Sudoku and a sandwich Sudoku, except that you don't know which numbers are going to form the edges of the sandwich. It's a brilliant idea, it really is. One of the comments from somebody who solved this puzzle, I noticed, said that they thought this puzzle was so good it could become a common Sudoku variant because it has so much potential, which is always an interesting sign. So let's think about how it might work. We've got a 23 cage there, so let's imagine there was a 9 there and a 1 there. So these would obviously be the biggest and smallest numbers in the cage. Then these 4 digits would have to add up to 23. Now somehow we're going to have to solve this. So do have a go yourselves. Click on the link under the video as usual. And with that, let's get cracking. And in fact, I can put a number in the grid. Look, there's this cage here. It's got a 2 clue. So we know that 2 must be in the sandwich. And so it must go there. So that's got to be surrounded. I suppose it's got to be surrounded by a 1. 1 is the only digit lower than 2. And then it could be anything on the other side of the sandwich. But at least we get a number and a pencil mark straight away. There's an enormous cage there. This 7 cage is an 8-cell cage, so it's missing exactly 1 digit. I don't know what to do with that though. 17. Not sure. 14. Oh, 14. I can do something with that. Yeah, because 14. You can see the maximum number of cells we could include in the sum here in the sandwich would be those 2. So it must be those 2 because you can't make 14 with 1 digit. So these 2 cells have to add up to 14. So they've got to be either 5 and 9 or 6 and 8. Oh, but yeah, okay, but they can't be 5 and 9 because if it's 5 and 9 in this, then what number is bigger than 9 to form an edge of the sandwich? No number. So 5 and 9 just simply can't go in the middle. This must be 6 and 8, and there must be a 9 to form the boundary in one of those cells. So this is intriguing already. Now here's an idea. Look at this. I'm just wondering. Let me just think about this. 9, 8, 7, 6. Okay. Now this cage is very important because is it possible that in this cage there is no 9? That's a very interesting question. Is there no 9 in this cage? Now, if there's no 9, then let's say that there's an 8 and that forms a boundary of the sandwich. So let's say there's an 8 there just for the sake of example. Then we would need to somehow make those 4 squares add up to 23 without using a number that's bigger than an 8 or 8 itself. But 7 plus 6 plus 5 plus 4 is only 22. So that does not work. And it's, I mean, I suppose it goes without saying, I should have said it though, 6, 8, 9 is not going to work either, because although 6, 8, 9 does add to 23, so in theory this cage could contain a 3-cell sandwich, it can't really, because that would use the 9, and there's no digit higher than a 9 that could then form the sort of crust of the sandwich. So we know that this is a 4-cell sum, and we know that one of these squares is a 9. And that is really rather beautiful, because this square now can't be a 9. Look at that. That is just stunning straight off the bat, because if this is a 9, that's not a 9. If this is not a 9, this has to be a 9, and that still can't be a 9. So that is never 9, this is 9, therefore that's not 9, look, so this is 9. That square has to be lower than 6, but higher than 1 and 2. So that 3, 4 or 5, I think. And this must be a 4-cell sum. And then oh, now, hang on, that's also interesting. I was about to pencil mark 3, 4 and 5 in there. In fact, I have pencil marked it in, but I'm not sure that's right, because if I put 5 in there, that doesn't work at all, because there's only 3 digits between 5 and 9, so I'd have to fill those 4 squares with 3 digits, 6, 7 and 8. That's impossible. So this can't be a 5. And if it's a 4, I have no latitude at all. These 4 squares simply then have to be 5, 6, 7 and 8. And 5, 6, 7 and 8 doesn't add to 23, it adds to 26. So this is not a 4 either, so I think that has to be a 3. Now if that's a 3, these 4 squares have to be taken from 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. So I can only leave out one of those numbers, and I've got to make them add to 23. So which one do I need to leave out? I need to leave out the 7. So this combination is 4, 5, 6, 8. Wow, and that's not a 3. And now what do we do next? We got some 0 clues here which are completely useless. 11 clue. Don't really see how to use that one. Oh, this 17 clue, look, can't have a 9 at either end. Now that might matter. Why does that matter? Okay, yeah, that is important, because, well, in fact, I would have always, if I'd thought about it, you could always see that this can't be a 2-cell sum, because the only way of getting 2 cells to add up to 17 is if you use 8 and 9, and if you use 8 and 9 as the sandwich filling, you can't put a number bigger than 9 as the crust of the sandwich. So this is a 3-cell sum. These cells here have to add up to 17, and there's no 9 in either of those squares. So if one of these squares is not 8 either, then we'd have to use 6, 5 and we'd have to use numbers below 7 to get to 17, and you can't do that because 6 plus 5 plus 4 is only equal to 15. So one of these squares is an 8. I'm getting there slowly. This square has to be an 8. Sorry, that was a bit long-winded, but this square is an 8. Therefore, those aren't 8. So now I've got to make 17 in 3 cells from numbers below 8. So that's got to be 4, 6, and 7. That's the only way of doing that. Therefore, this square has to be a 5. And that has to be an 8 because it can't be a 6. Therefore, there's a 6 there. The 6 sees all 3 of those squares. So that must be a 6. That can't be a 6 now. This puzzle is brilliant. It's so original. Now, what do we do now? What's the options for this? This has to be lower than a 4, so it's got to be a 1, 2, or a 3. Now hang on. If we look at this box, look, these these 3 squares I haven't pencil marked yet have to be 1, 2, 3, or 9. Well, that square can't be a 1, 2, or a 3, so that can only be a 9. Those 2 squares are 1, 2, and 3. There's a 9 up there, a 9 down here. Now in this 8 cage, Now, in the 8 cage, this 9 has to form one side of the boundary. So this can't be a 1, because if it's a 1, the 1 and the 9 would be next to each other, and this clue would have had to be a 0. Of course. Now, we can do so much more with this 8 cage, because you can't use a 3-cell sum to make 8. Because to use 3 cells to make 8, you have to use a 1. And if you use a 1, 1 is inside the sandwich, but it also needs to be the sort of crust of the sandwich as well. So you'd have to repeat the 1 in the cage. So this 8 clue has to be a 2-cell sum, and therefore this can't be a 2, because if this is a 2, this has to be a 6, and the 6 would clash. Nice. So this is a 3, I think. Those 2 can't be 3. This has to be 5. This has to be... no, it doesn't. I was about to say it has to be 1, but it doesn't. It could be a 1 or a 2. It just has to be lower than 3. So this is a 1, 2 pair. That square... Well, that square's pretty unrestricted, isn't it? I mean, if this is 2, it means that square can't be a 1, but that's all we're going to get out of that. Let me just stare at this for a second. This 5 gives me a 4. That's good. There's got to be a 5 in one of those 3 cells at the bottom because of these 5s here and here. One thing I like about this so far is it's very narrow. It feels like, you know, one deduction has led to another deduction, has led to a very specific next deduction. And that is my favourite type of puzzle. 3s, 4s. Do I use this 7 clue? Oh, now actually I can. Yes, look. So can this square be a 9? If this square is a 9, I have to make, well, I can't have a single cell 7 here. So the 7 would have to be 2 cells exactly. It can't be 3 cells because 1, 2 and 4 obviously uses the 1, and we've looked at this already. You can't repeat the 1 in the cage. So I would have to make those 2 squares add up to 7, but then this square would have to be the boundary of the sandwich. Now, it would therefore have to be a 1 or a 2, and it would have to be a 1 or a 2 because in this cage, I can miss out one number. It's an 8-cell cage. So there must either be a 1 or a 2, or both, in this cage. Therefore, the sandwich boundary must be a 1 or a 2. And that square cannot be a 1 or a 2, so this square cannot be a 9. Now, can we go further than that? Just wondering about this square, because if this square is a 9 and I have a 2-cell sandwich, I can't put a 1 or a 2 here because of this cage. So is there a way of making this square work as a 9? Ah, this is very nice, isn't it? Because if this is a 2-cell sum, that would put the 1 or 2 here, which again clashes. 7 doesn't. Oh no, 7. Ah, no, bother. Look, it does work if we go 9 here, 7 as a single cell there, and then a 1 or a 2 there. Ah. Okay, so we can't quite. Maybe I can rule this one out. If this is a 9, the sandwich couldn't come down because that would have to be 7 here, which doesn't work. So if this is a 9, you must go 2-cell sandwich, and then this square is a 1 or a 2. So that's one option. And if this is a 2-cell sandwich, it would have to be, what would it have to be? It can't be 5, 2, because you can't put a 2 here. It can't be 2, 5, because the 5 has to be there. It can't be 1, 6, so it would have to be 3, 4. This would have to be a 3. This would have to be a 4. Unfortunately, that does look like it works. So the only other situation would be that this square is the 9. If that's the 9, that's got to be a 7, and that's got to be a 1. So this is always a 1 or a 2. Ah, bother. I'm sure there is a way of... I'm sure there's a way of disambiguating this. This feels like it's what I'm meant to do, and I'm just got to be a bit cleverer about it. Oh, 8s maybe. So there must be an 8 in one of those 2 cells. Ah, no, yes, I can do it. I can do it, because watch. None of those 3 squares can be a 1 or a 2. So the question is, can any of those 3 squares be a 1 or a 2? And the answer no, that's... I can do better. I can do better than that. Let's focus in specifically on 1. Is there a 1 in those 3 squares? No. Is there a 1 in those 3 squares? Now, if there is a 1 in one of these 3 squares, what happens? We know the 9 is in one of those 2 positions, so we would have to have a 1 and a 9 within those 3 cells, and therefore they would have to have a 7 between them, which is impossible, because there's already a 7 in column 5 already. So the 1 in this box is not here, and it's not here. It's definitely in one of those 3 cells. Therefore, that's a 2, that's a 1, that's a 2. Now, has that broken? Yes, it has. It's disambiguated it. Look, I've got 2s here and here now. So there is definitely a 2 in one of these squares. And look now, if we look at the pencil marks, I've got 2s, 5s and 9s all pencil marked into those 3 cells. So this cannot be a 3 anymore. That's got to be a 9. This is a 2-5 pair. If the 9 is here, this has got to be a 7. Because this can't be a 2-cell. Sorry, I'm just checking my logic earlier. This can't be a 2-cell sum because that puts a 1 or a 2 here, and that's not going to work. So this square is a 7 now. This square is a 1, or this square is a 1 because there's already a 2 in the box. This square is a 1. There's a 1 up here now. What a puzzle this is. This is really good. One's in one of those squares. And sorry, need another pause while I think about this again. So this square is completely open, I think. Okay, so what do we do now? If we look here, look, I've got most of the digits in column 5, so that's got to be a 1 and a 3 up there. So this still needs 4, 6 and 7. Oh, well there's a 4, 6 there, so that's got to be a 7. This has got to be 4, 6. 6, 7. It's got to be a 3 down here. I'm not sure if that's useful yet. Still haven't worked out the missing digit from this big cage here. Sorry if you guys are seeing the next step. I'm not spotting it yet. 3. There's got to be a 3 in one of those cells. That's just these. That's just doing Sudoku. Look. That one we don't know about. This box, maybe I can do stuff with this box. I've definitely got 1, 2, 5, 7 and 9 in it. So the options are 3, 4, 6 and 8. So these two squares have got to be from 4, 6 and 8. That's not that great, is it? I can't... 6 and 8. There's no 7 in those two squares, look. So the 7 in this row must be either here, here, or here. That does not seem very helpful. Actually, 5 is 5 the same though? I think 5's the same. Oh, 5, no, 5's better in fact, because this can't be a 5. So 5 is either there or here. Now, is there a way of telling which is which? Well, if there is, I'm not seeing it. So I think we've got to look somewhere else. We've got some info now, look, up here. Oh, this is, yeah, here we go. This 7 cage. Can this be a 1? If that's a 1, how on earth do we make 7 now? Because we can't make a single digit total equal 7 because those squares can't include 7. So this can't be 1. That's a 3. That's a 1. That's not a 1. This is interesting now. So 6 therefore must be a boundary here, because one side of this is going to be 3, 4, which is going to be our sum of 7. The other side of it's going to be the 6, which will have to act as the boundary. So there's got to be a 1 or a 2, therefore, on the other side of the 3, 4 to act as the boundary to that. Ah, but that's not going to be enough digits. And then there'll have to be a 5 in one of those two squares, because anything bigger than that, and it would replace the 6 as the highest digit. Right, so we get 1, 2, and 5 into those squares. That can't be a 1, look. Nine. Ah, this is interesting. Look, 9 is forced into this 11 cage. So 9 will be the highest digit. And wherever this 9 goes, look, it's not right at the edge. It's sort of in the middle. So it gives a maximum. If this is the 9, there's a maximum of 2 squares to add to 11. If this is a 9, there's a maximum of 2 squares to add to 11. So, and we can't use 9, 2, 4, 7 or 5, 6 to make 11. So this has to be... Oh, this is a lovely symmetry. Look, if this is the 9, we know we have got to use 3, 8 to make the 11 total, so it would have to be those two squares if this is the 9. If this is the 9, these two have to add to 11 and they have to be 3, 8. So this is a 3, 8, 9 triple. That can't be 9. That means that square's got to be 5. This must be 8. 8 goes here. Oh, 6 now. 6 must go here in row 5 of the grid. Those two squares have got to be 4 and 7. That's fixable. 4 here. 4, 7. 4 must live in one of those squares. This can't be 5 anymore. Oh, if this can't be 5, that must be 5. We've already done that logic. Ah, and this tells us the order of the 7 cage. Because we know... Yeah, if I put the 4 here, these are the 2 squares that need to be inside the sandwich, but that's going to make that a 6. And then this is going to be the biggest number in the cage, and it's going to be next to the smallest number in the cage, which would mean this would have to be a 0. So that does not work at all. This has to be the 6. This has to be the 4. This can still be 1 or 2. Oh, but look in this cage now. Where does 1 and 2 go? We've got a 1, 2 here. So they must go... This must be a 1, 2 pair. That can't be a 3. This has to be a 7 to complete the box. There's a 7 in one of those 2 squares. It's just very... Ah, there's a 1's here, so we can place a 1 here. Now that 1... Oh, lovely. It's all kicking off now. Look, this 1 is in a 4 cage. So... This 1 will act as the boundary, so it must be next to a solitary 4. And it can't be downwards, because we need to bound it. So this is going to be the 4. This is going to be the highest number in this cage. And it can be a 3, 6, or an 8. And I don't know whether we can tell which. This has got to be 3 or 6. Oh, hang on. Look. No, I can do better. This square has to be a 6 because it's in the cage with a 3. So it can't be a 3. And now this square can't be a 3 because if that's a 3, how on earth is this 4 bounded? It's not. It's bounded by a 1 on one side, but 3 is less than 4. It needs to be greater than 4. So this can't be a 3. That's got to be an 8. Therefore, that's a 3. Oh, 8, 8. That's got to be an 8. So that's got to be the 9 now. I feel like I might be able to... Oh, yeah, I can. This can't be a 1. If this is a 1... then 1 and 9 would be the biggest and smallest numbers in the box. That's not possible. This is the 1. That means this is the 1. This is a 2. 1, 7 pair at the bottom. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I wanted to just change the pencil marking slightly. These two squares have got to be 2 and 5. That's doable now, isn't it? 2, 5. That 5 obviously doesn't disturb the conclusions we've got to with the 11 cage, so that's rather nice. We need 7 and 9 into these two squares. Ah, haha. But this can't be a 9. You can't put a 9 in the corner. Nobody puts 9 in the corner. To quote a version of an old movie. That, if you put the 9 in the corner, what does that do to the clue here? Well, now we'd have to be adding those two cells up because the 9 and the 1 would be the biggest and smallest digit in the cage. And we'd have a 12 total, not a 4 total. So the 9 has to live here. That can't be a 9, look. These two squares are 2 and 3 to complete the box. What now? Oh, hang on, that's something. Look here. Oh, in fact I can put a 6 here because I've got a 1-7 pair. Let's put a 6 there. But the thing I'd noticed was not that, it was the 1s. This 0 cage can't contain a 1. Now if it can't contain a 1 and it contains a 2, the 2 must be the boundary. Now this is even better with a 6 here, because if this is a boundary and there's a 0 total, this is also a boundary. Therefore these two squares have got to be between 2 and 6. So they've got to be 3, 4 and 5, and there is a 3 here. This has to be 4, 5. Which is obviously going to give us another digit. It gives us a 2 at the bottom. That fixes the 2, 5 there. What do we need to complete that? We need a 6. 6 is therefore down in one of those two squares. That therefore has to be a 3. So this becomes a 1-6 pair, I think. Let's put that in. Can we resolve it? Not quite, but look, there's a 9 now in this cage. So this has to be... oh. Is that right? Is there a 3 in this cage as well? Because if there is, that's a bit... this has now got to be an 8. And now presumably we can work this out, because we need to make sure that we have the biggest and lowest digits together because of the 0 clue. So if the 9 was here, this would have to be a 1, and that would work. That would get 1, 9, 3 here. That would be okay. If the 9 was here, the 3 would be here. That would force this to be a 6. So both options might still be available. Not sure. 2, 4, 5. Oh, that's just a 5. Let's just fill that in. That fixes the 5 and the 4 over on that side. That should be a 2. That fixes the 2 and the 3. 3 is not here anymore. Oh, I've not been paying attention to this 7 cage either. So I've also got this cage as well, but I'm not sure that that's going to be terribly useful. So, oh, 5 now, look. Yeah, 5 has to go here, which I've noticed from Sudoku and from the fact there's a 5 in this box. So this is 3, 4 and 7 in some order. So this has to be 3 or 7. And look, it can't be a 7, there's a 7 in the cage already. So that's a 3. This is a 4 because of the 7 here. That's a 7, that's a 4. 4 lives down here. These squares have got to be 6, 7 and 9. Don't know if there's a way of resolving that, but we can do some pencil marks and see. 6, 7, 6, 9. 6 up here means we can tidy up pencil marks at the bottom. So there's got to be some way of resolving this. Is it this cage, this 0 cage, that I'm not fully worked on yet? I bet it is. Anyway, let's just complete the pencil marks over here. We need 3, 7 and 9 into those squares. 6, 7 and 8 here. 4, 6 and 9 there. So let's come back over here and have a think about this. Let's see. 3, 9. So if that's a 3, 4, 8. Oh, hang on, no, I can do better than that. Look, this 4 is in this. Yeah, this 4 is in the same cage as that one. So that's an 8, that's a 4. Now that might help as well. That looks a 4 down there. This can't be an 8 anymore. That gives us a 1, 6, 7 triple look across there. So this square has to be a 3 or a 9 as well. It's 9, 6, 7 here. This now has to be an 8. Okay, so we still end up in the same position, which is, oh no, we don't end up in, I've done it again. This cage is in the same position as this one. So this is a 6. It's because I keep staring at this going, I'm not sure how it resolves. Does this puzzle have 2 solutions? But hopefully it doesn't, because I keep missing out stuff up here. So this is a 6, that's a 7. This now feels better, doesn't it? That fixes the 7 and the 1 and the 6. Now this can't be a 7, and yeah, look at this, you end up here, but now you can disambiguate it because we've got to a better position. This square has to be the 9 in order to keep the total as a 0. That fixes everything. Check. I can't see that. It says looks good to me. Brilliant. So we are done. What a great puzzle. I hope you enjoyed it. I thought that was absolutely brilliant, and I would very much like to see more of those. Let me know in the comments whether you did too, and we'll be back later on with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.